Hey guys, thanks for tuning into Red Dirt Rods. Now today we're doing something special. We're working with fiberglass, and I'm going to teach Ben and Brock here how to lay up fiberglass on a fiberglass mold. So what we have are a couple of universal scoops. You can put these pretty much anywhere on a car. This is going to be the inside piece, so the inside will be nice and smooth, and the outside will look like this. So we're going to show these guys how to mix fiberglass, how to prep the molds, how to lay it up, and how to cure it all so you can do it for your project. Alright, so first thing is you need a few tools to properly lay up fiberglass. You need a fiberglass roller. These come in many different shapes and sizes. Like these two here, we've got a really narrow one that's about a 2-inch. We've got a 3-inch that's about an inch in diameter. And what these do is when you lay your fiberglass down on your mold, you take this and you roll it all over the entire surface and get in those corners so that your fiberglass lays down and molds completely, or forms completely to the mold. These are important. You can get away without them if you're doing a small project by using a brush and pushing it, but it's a lot easier if you have one of these. You also need some chip brushes. Now these are 2-inch brushes. I usually keep 2-inch and 1-inch around so that you can brush your resin on and get into the sides and push it down. If you don't have one of these, you want a nice stiff chip brush, but you need a chip brush anyways. You're gonna need fiberglass resin, which is what we have here. We pulled this out of our 55-gallon drum. You're going to need gel coat. If you're doing a mold, you don't have to use gel coat, but it looks better, gives you a cleaner outer finish. And this gel coat is really sweet because it's actually blue metal flake. So our parts are going to come out looking really good. Another thing you need is MEKP. Now you can buy MEK, which is similar to acetone, that's methyl ethyl ketone. This is something different, and if you go to a body shop, not a body shop, if you go to a paint shop and you ask for MEKP, sometimes they'll give you a case of MEK, which is not going to work. You have to have MEKP, which is methyl ethyl ketone peroxide. That is the hardener for both the resin and the gel coat. If you're doing a small project, you're starting off, you don't want to buy a 55-gallon drum. I mean, you have no need for it. It goes bad after about 6 months, so you really don't want to have that laying around going bad, so you buy a gallon of it. So if you're doing a small project, you're probably going to buy a gallon of fiberglass resin like this. You can get it at Walmart, the parts store, or a body supply shop. I highly recommend a body supply shop because if you go to Walmart or a parts store, this has been sitting in a warehouse for 6 months before it ever got to the store, where it has sat for another 6 months. So it's old. This one is a couple of years old, and it never got used, and it's basically a solid rock at the bottom with a bunch of liquid on top. This is junk. Then that's gonna come with a couple of little tubes of hardener. They're gonna be clear tubes that have graduations on them, and when you mix this stuff, you can mix it by drops, or you mix it with one of these. This is a graduated dispenser specifically for things like MEKP. And there's a little straw that goes all the way down to the bottom, and you squeeze this. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to get too much out, but you squeeze this and the MEKP comes out of this tube at the top. It has graduations here, so you know exactly how many cc's of MEKP you're pulling out. I'll post up a chart for your basic mixing ratios for fiberglass resin and your gel coat, and it'll be right here. We'll also have it down in the description, way down here. While you're at it, make sure you like and subscribe so we can continue doing awesome videos for you guys. This is the basic stuff you need. When you're doing a mold, you also need wax. This is specifically Honey Wax is the brand. This is a mold release agent. For small projects, you don't have to use this. You can use any kind of carnauba-based paste wax like turtle wax. But when you're doing something important or something off of a mold that you can't risk destroying, you really need to use the right stuff. This is very affordable. And basically, you just pop it open. You apply it with this, you buff it off. You need to do that at least 5 times. You need to have at least 5 coats of wax on your mold before you start laying up gel coat. We're gonna go over all of that as we do it, but that's kind of the basics of what you need. We're gonna first prep these by cleaning them really well with some paint thinner, some lacquer thinner. The other thing you need is acetone. Now acetone is incredibly flammable, but it's about the only thing that will break down fiberglass resin. So we have a small can of this set aside. We'll pour this out. You need to use a metal container for acetone because acetone will eat through most plastics. So polyethylene is safe, but don't take a risk. Use something metal. We've got a metal bucket that we're going to use. Alright, so we've got our molds cleaned. These are nice and clean. They look really good. Now, in order to get the fiberglass to remove off of this, we have to wax it. So we're going to break out our honey wax. And like I said earlier, we're going to use these applicators that we've got. 5 coats. You want at least 5 coats. If it's a new mold, you're going to do 5 coats. And you're going to spray PVA, which is polyvinyl alcohol, on it in order to get it to release. I have some here, but these are old molds, so we're not going to use them. So you just take a little bit of paste wax. Okay, just like that. You start buffing it, waxing it in. So you got to get every inch of this thing coated. And you want a nice thin application each time. And then you work this into the part really, really well, and then you let it haze up. And once it hazes up, then you can buff it off, just like waxing a car. It's just you're gonna be doing it 5+ times. Every surface, if you miss one area, like on this one, including this little cutout, we're gonna put wax inside there, okay? Make sure we got every surface. We're also going to go around the perimeter. Okay, you don't want loose wax laying on this. You just want to get it to where it's nice and smooth and thin and it's not liquid. Okay, so then once this hazes up, which is starting to haze up on the top, we're going to take a clean microfiber and we're going to buff the hell out of this. So you're gonna buff it off really, really well. And make sure you get into those corners. I want you to notice when you look at this, you see how this edge here is narrower than this, and it goes that way all the way around. If you put a straight edge here and you follow this whole thing around, you'll notice that it's everywhere. It's like this. That's called draft. You have to have at least 1 to 2 degrees of draft everywhere. You see how this is angled back? That's not for the design of the part, that's to make it release from the mold. So that has to be incorporated into it. So this one's buffed. Now we can wax this one, and this one can get waxed again. So what I like to do is take a Sharpie and just put a mark on the table every time I have completed a complete wax and buff. So this one has 1. This one has none. So now these guys are going to start waxing and buffing. Okay, so our molds are waxed, and I'm going to show you a little trick to make sure that your molds are good. We're just put a little piece of masking tape on it, and it shouldn't really stick, and it doesn't stick hardly at all. Okay, so first we're going to mix up our gel coat, and this is indica blue metallic gel coat. So I've got a little list here with some of my hardener rates. For gel coat, we use a 2% catalyst. You adjust that for temperature up or down. If it's really cold, you can add a little more. If it's really hot, you can drop it down and add a little less. In here, it's a little above room temperature. We're about 82, 83 degrees in here. So I'm gonna keep it standard. It will kick a little bit faster, but I kind of want it to, so that we can get things going. Normally, if it's 73 degrees and you do 2%, your gel coat should kick in about 20 minutes, and you can do a second coat after about 15. So we're gonna do 4 ounces of gel coat. I think that will get both of these. It might not, I don't know, I haven't done these in a long time. So I'm gonna take this and pour in 4 ounces. We've got 4 ounces of gel coat at 2%. That's 2.4 milliliters or cc's. And this is, the first graduation is 2.5. So I'm just gonna squeeze this, pop the cap off, pour that right into our cup. Then we're just gonna stir it. You wanna scrape the bottom of the cup and scrape the sides. Scrape it down, mix it up really, really good. We've also got our parts sitting on some paper so that the drip that comes off won't ruin our table. Now this stuff it's really runny. We've got one chip brush here that we're gonna share. I'm just gonna pour this on. And then just brush it in, light coat all the way around. And then as this stuff starts to set up, we'll be able to get the build that we're looking for. Now this is a male mold because it's the outside. We're actually molding the inside that's going to be shown. So because of that, we'll get drip off around the side. If this was a female mold, which would be the inverse of this, then the gel coat and all that stuff would be a little bit easier. Now big parts, you can spray this with a gun. I have a spray gun specifically for gel coat. All right, so I'm gonna go get some more gel coat because we're definitely gonna need more. I would say for these two parts, somewhere around 8 to 10 ounces overall would be enough. And you can do that in about 2, maybe 3 coats. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this to these guys. I'm gonna go get some more gel coat. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention is gloves. You gotta have gloves. You don't really want this stuff on your skin. If you get a little bit on you, which you're going to, it's not going to make you sick, but it's hard to get off. And if it's catalyzed, if it's, you know, mixed up, it'll harden. It can take a little bit of skin off when you peel it off. It's just difficult. So make sure you wear good gloves. Okay, so to clean this, I'm gonna set this aside. To clean this, I'm gonna take some acetone, and I've got a metal container here. I don't know if these cups will be okay with acetone. We're going to find out. And this is my test to find out. So I'm using the brush. I'm just using the brush to basically wash the acetone on the cup. A lot of times I'll use a old oil pan or valve cover to do this. This cup seems to be just fine. So this cup must be polypropylene. It should be, because it's being used for paint. So now I'm just gonna let this brush soak in this acetone inside here until this is ready. All right, so because we have drip off, I'm going to go ahead and use our stir stick, and I'm just gonna wipe the edge just to make it easier to demold these parts. When we do the fiberglass, we cut all of the excess off, but the gel coat, not quite as simple. We'll give it about 10 more minutes and we'll mix up our next batch. Okay, so what we're gonna do, what we're gonna use on these is woven. So this is 2-ounce woven. Normally I would use a combination of woven and chop mat, but I don't. I have a brand new roll of chop mat that I don't want to open up just yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this. This works really well on parts that have a lot of angles. This is not what you want if you've got big flat sections, because this will flex a little bit more, but when you've got lots of curves, this stuff is perfect. So it works really well and it lays down well. And you don't get as many frays like you do with chop mat. But chop mat conforms better to certain shapes and it works better on larger flat surfaces because of all the different angles that the chop mat is at. Whereas this is a weave, so it goes vertical and horizontal, and a chop mat is just random fibers about that long. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix up our resin and we're gonna lay each piece down. We'll press it in with the chip brushes and we'll keep going. You don't have to wait for the fiberglass to gel before the next layer, unlike you do with gel coat. So we can just keep going. We're gonna mix up 8 ounces of resin, which is double what we were doing for the gel coat, and we're gonna run that at 2.4 cc's, which is 1%. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, both of these reactions, these are both chemical reactions, they are exothermic. So what that means is they generate heat. The hotter you mix it, the more heat you generate. You can mix this so hot that it catches on fire. It can smoke. I've seen it happen. You don't want to mix this stuff very hot because bad things happen. When fiberglass catches on fire, it burns for days, and this resin will burn hot enough to burn straight through concrete. So you want to be careful with it. It's not a huge deal. You have to have a big open flame, or you mix it really, really hot. So you don't want to do that. And as hot as it is right now in the shop, we're not going to mix it that hot at all. So we're going to mix up 8 ounces. And we're going to go 2.4. And we're going to see how fast this lasts. We've got our resin, mixing it, same deal. Scrape the cup several times, scrape the bottom, scrape the sides, scrape the bottom. Okay, so first thing, we're gonna reuse our brush. You can get new brushes, but you don't need to. First thing we do is just lay a base layer, just a thin base coat all over the entire surface of the gel coat. We'll take 1 layer of matte and we're just gonna drop it on, and we're gonna tuck it in on the front. We can do a couple of different things on this. I'm going to slice this with our scissors. If you were doing this in production, you would know, you would already have this laid out as a pattern. Okay, so then we just start wetting it out, and you push it down. I'm just gonna work one side at a time, and you see how the color changes when it gets saturated. There's wet and then there's saturated. So the weave should basically disappear into the resin. So get this wet out real good, then I'm just gonna bring this over and just kind of tuck this in. Okay, then we get this up in the front. So now we have the bulk of this wet out. Obviously we have some problem areas around the front here. We can address that. I will go back through our mat and I will cut this so that it blends a little bit better. And we're done. Now I'm just kidding. Okay, so now we're gonna take one of our rollers, and the rollers do the job of pushing everything down. And see, now that you see that dab method works really well when you have an uneven gel coat. So we're gonna focus on that for now, and then we'll lay up another piece. Hey, ready to run. Make sure you like and subscribe. I've got a bunch of fiberglass projects planned in the near future. I'm gonna show you how to make a mold. I'm gonna show you how to build custom parts. I'm gonna show you how to use some really cool stuff that you never would have imagined would work for fiberglass. It's gonna be pretty cool. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have a question or a suggestion or something you'd like to see us do. Once you get the second layer on, it usually will work a little better with the roller. I also have this corner roller, which is really nice for just coming in here and getting a nice tight roll on those corners. And see right now, see that? See how when he was coming this way, he snagged an edge? It all just depends on how you lay down your glass and the shape of the part. There's always little nooks and crannies that can snag. You also don't want to push too hard because you can pull the mat away from the base, and that gives you an air pocket, which gives you a thin layer on the outside which can break really easily.
Brock. What you think of your fiberglass?
Looks pretty good. Corner. I like it.
That's all you
happy
gotta say?
with it.
Yeah. Okay.
First time ever doing this, so I have no clue what it's supposed to look like. But I know it'll look cool, so that's all that's important.
Okay, Ben. How you feeling about your mold?
Pretty good.
Alright, so that's all there is to laying up the molds. We've got to let these sit and cure out for a good 24 hours. Then we'll come back, demold them, trim them up, and show you what it looks like. Alright, so our parts have sat for a few days. We let them cure over the weekend. Now normally what I would do is come back and cut all of this stuff off when it's in the green stage, which means it's starting to gel up, but it's not hard yet. We ran out of time the other day, so we weren't able to do that. But we've got our scissors, we're gonna go do it now. And we're just gonna cut as much of this off as we can. And some of this is hardened fiberglass, so not gonna be super easy. There we go. Now the edges can get really sharp, and the where you get a little like this right here, that is really sharp and it can stab you pretty good. So you do want to be careful. If you were doing this normally, you would have a little bit of a cleaner edge. If we were to do this again, I would change our shape, and I would also use chop mat instead of the woven to get a better finished product, better overall surface. All right, so we've already demolded one, but we're gonna show you how to demold this one. Now this one's gonna be interesting because, this is open, and that's gonna create a little bit of a issue. It's gonna lock it in. So we are gonna have to chisel this a little bit. I will take the blame on that one because I should have taped that up so that this didn't happen. But if you do have it, you just take a little chisel, and we're just gonna carefully chisel around the end of this. I'm gonna go ahead and take the chisel. No, that should be all right. I'm just checking the edges, the perimeter, making sure that none of the gel coat has wrapped around the end, which can cause a problem. So now we have this. What I like to do is like take the soft side of the mallet, and I just like to tap around in a few places. I'm not hitting it hard. I'm just tapping it to kind of shock it a little bit. Now, on this one, what we're going to do is we're going to start on the end. We're going to work this way to pop this out because we got to drop this out from here. And this is going to be the easiest end to work with. So, there is a bit right there. And then I'm going to start by seeing if I can pull it by hand.
You got it on this side.
Let's see here. I'm just going to tap some of the edge of the fiberglass. Okay, so now it's starting to, you see, it's starting to pull. Take this plastic wedge, and I'm just going to pull it back a little bit. There we go. Okay. Tap it in a little. Sometimes they'll just pop right loose from here, but if not, you don't want to risk damaging anything. You don't want to tear anything, so there we go.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is old. So I'm just going to go ahead and take another wedge and lightly tap it. Then you can take the next wedge. Now I got these wedges at Harbor Freight. They're a couple bucks. They have them in different sizes. You can make your own wedges. There we go, you heard it snap. There's our mold. Mold looks just fine. We got a little edge there. And that is our finished piece. Now all we have to do is take this to the sander or the grind or the saw or whatever. We can cut this out to whatever shape we want. If I was going to use this on a fender, I would probably bring this in from the back and blend it from there, because you can blend the sheet metal easier than you can this thicker edge. That's probably how I would do that. And then, so this would be the inside of your quarter panel. This would get cut out and cleaned up, and then you'd put a little trim ring here and then a duct on the back, or you just leave it solid, or do whatever you want to with it. That's pretty cool. Now, if you had built this, you could take this, or more appropriately, this one. You could clean this whole thing up, then you could wax this, and you could create this side for like a little hood scoop, or something like that, or whatever kind of, whatever you wanted to use this shape for. You could do that, but you can also use that as a mold as well, because this is basically a mold now. You can use it as a part, you can use it as a mold. If I was going to use this as a mold, I'd make it a little bit thicker and probably put some stiffening in there, but that's all there is to it. Fiberglass is fun. So this is their first fiberglass that they've pulled off a mold. This is the first time they ever worked with fiberglass. Did a pretty good job, pretty proud of them. All right, make sure you like and subscribe. We're gonna show you some more fiberglass stuff coming up soon. Thanks for watching. Let's make magic.